The NFL stands for not for long.
Set, Sharga and Armstead. Roll out, Walker still running out. Looks to the left, wide open, Thompson touchdown. Colin Thompson with the touchdown. There was nobody within 20 yards of
What a catch off the bobble. Colin Thompson scoops it up.
Lofting corner, the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown. The first NFL touch for Colin Thompson is a score.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Colin Thompson Show, brought to you by Not For Long Media and the original Fudge Kitchen, shipping fudge and sweet treats all across the country. Go to fudgekitchens.com to get yourself some fudge, or if you're down the Jersey Shore, all the way from Ocean City down to Cape May, multiple locations, stop in there, grab some fudge. Summer is winding down, but the fun still goes on down the shore. If you're not a shoebie and you just pick up and leave because, hey, it's September and this is when I leave the shore, even though the weather's still fantastic, I'll never understand that. I get if you have kids and all that, but there's no reason why you can't go down on the weekend. I'm not a big believer, Jack, in the Memorial Day to Labor Day, then we leave and never come back till next year vibe. Doesn't do it for me. That's Jack Connell, Jack in the back. Do it all for Not For Long Media. Do it all for the Ross Tucker Show. Ross was killing it on NFL Network the other day. Ross is always killing it. Great work on there. Jack, how are you doing? What is going on in your life?
Doing good, just continuing to fight the good fight. Got back to my old blogging days yesterday for DraftKings. That was
Is that breaking news?
No, it was a one-off. It was my Michael Jordan on the Wizards stint of writing.
Just compare yourself to Michael Jordan.
On the Wizards. I was out of retirement for 3 years. They called me back in.
Hey, Ben Simmons on the Nets would be better than Michael Jordan on the Wizards here. But I like where you're at. Yeah, did you see Ben Simmons loves Philly and wants to come back? Very smart of him.
I liked the interview a lot. It opened up a lot about him. I mean, listen, he could go out and say easily in an interview, I want nothing to do with Philly. I don't like how the fans treated me during when I was injured. Nobody really knew what was going on. Could have been very easy for him to say that, and a lot of people accept it. The fact that he took the high road and said, listen, I'm really excited. He's like, and he just flat out admitted, he's like, listen, I was not myself. I was nowhere near what I wanted to be as a player in Brooklyn with my back injury. I love how it's a second home to me. If I would get traded, I would want to go to Philly. He wants to play for Australia again. Granted, it's a lot easier to say those things, but listen, as somebody who's witnessed the Ben Simmons fiasco firsthand his entire career, this sounds like a completely different person that I've seen throughout his entire career, to the point where I'm very, very intrigued I'm somebody who's been duped by Ben Simmons by stuff he's done in the offseason about 4 times now, but it seems different. I'm excited to see what he does this year.
I would hear your thoughts on that. I appreciate you sharing them. I always try to tread lightly when we talked about Ben and Fultz. Like, there was more to it. Like, you don't think those guys want to be – that's where I struggle as a player. Like, you don't think those both of them, world-class talents, you don't think they want to be great? So whatever it was holding them back, mental issues, physical issues, pressure, whatever it may be, there was something there. Now, Fultz is another thing, but the Ben Simmons thing, like, I was a huge Ben Simmons fan, massive, and I had no problem with him not shooting, especially early on. Like, hey, this is who I am. I'm okay with it. I'm going to average almost a triple-double, and I'm going to have major impact on the game. And I love the process personally, and I believe in that. If you're in purgatory every year, like the Philadelphia Flyers, where you're the 20th best team in the league, and you barely make or miss the playoffs every year, and you lose in the first round if you get in, like, that's horrendous for a fan base. It's horrendous for the players. It sucks for the front office. No one makes any money. It stinks. So they went down to come back up. They landed Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. They missed on like 7 other guys. But it's a shame how it didn't work out. It sucks. But it is what it is. Like, those years with JJ Redick, Ben Simmons, and Embiid, like, and especially when this process started to happen, it was so much fun for me. I was all in on the Sixers.
Yeah.
And then
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I feel bad for guys. I do. Like, just it's like Ben Simmons, like, yo, screw that guy. And I get there were some things along the way that Ben did that weren't healthy for fans, right? And Ben knows they weren't, right? Like, he's no dummy. He knows like what he's going to say is either going to positively affect the fans, it's going to have no emotion, or it's going to be negative. And especially in Philly, it's heightened. So I wish him nothing but the best of luck. Like you said, I didn't listen to it, but I know if you're saying he sounds healthier, happier, good for him. And that's what it's all about. Like at the end of the day, like he's a professional athlete. He has a life. He's a family. He's trying to make this thing go. And remember, folks, it sucks, but it's true. If you have success in a city and you lead into a city and all that stuff, that's a bonus to being a pro athlete. But at the end of the day, like, I hope he's healthy and happy.
Yeah, and listen, it's going to be interesting to see what he turns out. I mean, I don't know if this means, obviously, the big question before the injury was changes to his game. Now, I think anybody would say if he returns to his form without those leaps, he's still an all-NBA player. Without those, he is still Magic Johnson incarnate. He is a defensive player of the year caliber player, and he is an all-NBA caliber. If he is going 100% all the time, he is absolutely all three of those things.
Him running the floor those years were so impressive. And like, I'm a huge Coward fan. And a part of it was Coward drove me to watch the Sixers more because he was obsessed with Ben Simmons. And I don't think anybody would project Ben going backwards, right? Like, you just say he gets a little bit better, right? Even like if his jumper was solid, not even solid, below average. I think, the list goes on and on. But obviously there's a blockage there. And that's way too much NBA talk for us. No, I'm kidding. That's good stuff. That's the last of my NBA fandom. Was right there, kind of when Ben started going downhill, and I enjoyed the Sixers then, man. I had a nice little 47 hat I rocked all the time, blue one. I lost it per like every other hat I wear, other than my Lost Boys hats, of course. But I digress. So, no, Jack, I wanted your opinion here as preseason wound down. Did you watch a lot of preseason games? I know you have to do a lot for work, but are you dialed into the preseason? What are things you watching from a fan's perspective?
I kind of tried to catch glimpses of everybody. I mean, I mainly watched the Eagles ones because of just my affiliations with work and whatnot. It was the main game that was on TV. But like, I mean, I had the access. I have NFL Plus, so I could watch any other games. Like I watched you against Tennessee and stuff like that. I mainly just, but I mainly caught glimpses of some guys. There's some interesting cuts, interesting roster additions, whatnot. But it's just fun. I mean, like, I'm just glad it's an interesting, different aspect of football to watch. Like you see so long, like from weeks 1 to 18, it's Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Mahomes ruling the world. But for 3 weeks a year, all everybody talks about is Tanner McKee, Malik Cunningham, Nathan Rourke, and these types of guys like Will Greer and stuff. And it's interesting. It's cool to see some new names and all that, the fun stuff.
Yeah, obviously I've been a part of that in the lower echelon of those names you're saying, right? I've been a part of that kind of bottom of the NFL where you're fighting your way on. Some guys are going to go play in the XFL, USFL, CFL out of that group. Some guys are going to make it in the league and be in a practice squad in the bottom of the roster. And if injuries happen, you get activated, right? I got cut by the Vikings. It is now Wednesday, August 30th. Teams are putting together their practice squads now. I did not get claimed, which means everyone, hits a waiver wire, right? You're seeing guys on Twitter now getting claimed. It's 2:30, August 30th. We're recording this. I don't know what's going to happen here this afternoon and tonight. There's interest, which is great. And I had a good preseason, one of my better ones I've ever had. So I'm really excited for what's to come. We'll see what happens. But so guys get waived. Excuse me. I'll explain that to everybody. You get cut or waived, whatever it is. And then there's a waiver wire and a waiver claim for 24 hours. You're available to get picked up by a team. They can claim you to their active roster. They have to cut somebody to make room for the 53. Then there's the practice squad, which there's 16 members now, which when I joined the league, there was 10. So those 6 extra spots don't sound like a lot, but that's a lot. You can have guys from multiple positions now. Before there was like 1 tight end, 1 O-lineman, just spread it out. I played corner in practice early on when I was with Chicago. Like I am slow as shit. So I shouldn't be playing corner in practice, but in like jog throughs and like run throughs, I'm playing corner because that's what you need. So it's a blessing to be a part of this league. I had an amazing time with the Viking franchise. I hope to go back there one day. Could be today, could be never, could be in a week. I have no idea. But I did everything I could and laid it down and laid it all on the line. So no complaints out of me. So that's kind of the update on my end. Just a lot of balls in the air, if you will. That's how this thing goes. You're just riding an emotional wave. You try to stay off Twitter, but it's hard not to watch where guys are landing and things are going. But a lot of good players got cut. That's how good this league is now, and you're seeing it. PJ Walker got cut in Chicago. He had guaranteed money. We'll see where he ends up. There's like a lot of good quarterbacks on the street. Will Grier ended up former Carolina Panthers, PJ and Will, teammates of mine. Will's in Cincinnati. He's already walking out to practice with Cincinnati. He got cut yesterday or whatever it was. And 24 hours later, he's walking out to practice in Cincinnati. Carolina, guys were getting signed and you're out of practice and we're clapping because dudes are literally running out to practice like an hour later into practice because they just signed with the team. So it's good stuff. It's fun. For those that don't like the preseason, I ask yourself, if you're a real football fan, like, what are you in it for? Now, I get it. There's the passion. It's like saying you're not going to enjoy a spring game if you're a diehard Florida Gator or a Penn State fan. Like, you enjoy the spring game for what it is. It's a spring game, right? You take for what it's worth. You see the future of the organization. You see maybe a recruit or two. You see a draft pick or an undrafted guy that's from your area, maybe went to your alma mater in the NFL, or a spring game that person knows somebody who knows somebody and their aunt, whatever it may be. I think there's a lot of cool stuff like that in the regular season. Like you said, Jack, there's 90 guys on the team. You're tracking guys coming back from injuries. Like, there's a lot going on in the preseason. I think the preseason is extremely interesting. Now, obviously, I've been a part of it, so it's easy for me to say. But even from a fan's perspective, whether you're diehard or moderate, there's always something to take away from the preseason, in my opinion. So it's a fun time for sure. All right, Jackie. Let's see. Lots to unpack here. I'll start with the bar of the week. I'm going to warm it up here at the bar of the week. Then I have to get in the Gator documentary here. We're a little late, but listen, there's a lot to unpack with that documentary. I have so many notes, and somehow, some way, I'm going to make it all into go to one clip here because I think it's a lot of coming from a Gator, former Gator, and I missed that era and all these things. So, bar of the week this week brought to you by the original Fudge Kitchen, shipping fudge and sweet treats across the country. FudgeKitchens.com. Cowboy Jack's in Minneapolis, Minnesota, right next door to the Twin Stadium, not too far from the Viking Stadium. Spent some time there this weekend. I was able to get there with some teammates, some family, hang out, camaraderie. It's a Nashville type bar. Obviously that country theme, but multiple levels, multiple rooms, bars everywhere, live music upstairs, live music downstairs, darts here, just so much stuff to do. I was blown away by the place. Didn't have much time to go out or do much in Minnesota, obviously in training camp, but Cowboy Jack's, this place is awesome. It has something for everybody. And if you're not a country music fan, like I said, Nashville, it's like the 3-level bar with stuff to do. Great rooftop bar, outside, just super cool. So I loved it. Great service, good fun, great ambiance. Service was a 4 out of 5. Beers, not on ice, so 4 out of 5. Ambiance, 5 out of 5. TV, 4 out of 5. Definitely a good place to go watch a game. If you're going to a Twins game or a Vikings game, hit that place before. Love it there. So a 19 out of 20 on, the bar of the week scale, as you say. Shout out to Sam Boners for Cowboy Jack's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Not Cowboy Jack Connell's. Have you ever been there before, Jack?
No, I've never been to Cowboy Jack's in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Have you ever been to Cowboy Jack? You're Cowboy Jack. Maybe we start calling you that.
I am not a cowboy by any sense. I'm touched by the nickname idea, but I'm not a cowboy in any sense of the word.
Okay. I need to take a break here because I'm just extremely exhausted from training camp, but I want to hear your thoughts on this Gator documentary before I get into it.
I'm 2 episodes in, and I am fairly disappointed by it. It does a good job at showcasing sort of some of the broader storylines, if I may. I mean, obviously Tim Tebow heavily featured. It got to a point where literally, like, he's awesome. Like, it's hard to believe that he is this pure of a person, and he really is. Like, it's incredible. But obviously I'm disappointed by so many of the things that they've left out. Most notably, Percy Harvin is like an afterthought when in reality he was one of the most dominant players in college football during his time, and he's just a byline. Aaron Hernandez, of course, is really not mentioned. Pouncey brothers are not mentioned at all really. I mean, I'm only 2 episodes in, so I don't know if they really mentioned them later, but they've not been included yet. Cam Newton never mentioned. Like, it's upsetting, Like, so many people came to this. Like, I'll throw an example of something I mentioned to you off air earlier this week, Colin. BSI on HBO Max about Bishop Sycamore High School. Really great. It goes really in depth. Bishop Sycamore BSI is what people wanted Swamp Kings to be. Like, they went down into the dirt, the nitty gritty, and really talked about all the stuff that, instead of just, in my opinion, I mean, you may think differently, I just felt it was a PR fluff piece for Urban Meyer, for Swamp Kings.
Yeah, it's great stuff, Jack. I think so. As a former Florida Gator, I was there 12 and 13. I came on the heels of all of that excitement and fun. I was able to watch that documentary in full. And that was one of the takeaways was I understand why I went there. I understand why there was the allure around the Florida Gator football team. It showed the swamp. It showed the fans. It showed the excitement. But overall, for Untold being what the documentary was called, I was very disappointed. I really was. I thought it was a puff piece for Florida football. I thought it was a puff piece for Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow. And I get all that, and I understand all that, and they have to agree probably to what was said. But overall, there was a ton left out. The fix to me, because everyone, you named it, they're missing this guy, missing that guy. Here's the fix. HBO or Netflix needs to get a hold of it. It needs to be 10, 15 episodes where episode 1, they talk about the culture of the program, how it changed. Episode 2, they talk about, the coaching staff, Urban Meyer's health issues, where these coaches went after Florida. Like, it's crazy, the expansion. Some guys got in trouble. Some guys are now head coaches in college football. Like, huge tree. Talk about the social and the party life. Talk about the swamp, the stadium, the SEC culture. Like, explain the whole thing to me. Explain players breaking the law. Talk about the lawyer in Gainesville that got the guys out of trouble. Like, these are all episodes to me, not just snippets. You can't just get this done in 3-4 episodes. Talk about the financial impact that Florida Gator football had on the university. The application rate probably went through the roof. The money now from boosters through the roof. New businesses in town. What's not there anymore currently after that era? There's stuff that is not there that was built during that time. The basketball team plays a huge role in this. They won back-to-back national championships during that football era of success. The campus was popping off, right? There's a lot of things left out. Obviously, Aaron Hernandez should be its own episode. Recruiting all those players should be its own episode. And then lastly, something that I think a lot of people don't realize when they're watching this, because it seems not that long ago, but it was a while ago. Phones weren't around then. Very rarely. It was flip phones, right? So the content that you see now from even when I played there in 12 and 13, I still have those pictures saved in my phone, those videos saved on my phone. But back then, that was 6 years before that. Twitter wasn't even out then, right? I don't even think Facebook just happened. So I think that's something to keep in mind too, but that would be how I would do it. I would do 10, 15 episodes of just little things about Florida football, because they're not just little things. There's lots to unpack there. Lots. So that's how I would attack it with that overall great approach. But that's great points out of you, Jack.
And also, I mean, with Tim Tebow, you talk about, obviously, Biff kind of mentioned a little bit of fluff piece for Tim Tebow. It honestly would have even done better things for his character and his ego if they talked about all this. And basically, he was literally like that Spider-Man meme of him like holding the train together with his hands. That was literally Tebow with the Florida football program.
The Florida football program was a mess down here, and then up here was Tebow. And all the stuff they say about him, guys, I'm not going to get into all of it. That's all true. Like, Tebow is real as it gets. Like, what you see there is the same Tim that I met, is the same Tim that everybody's have the opportunity to cross paths with. The guy's just different. Like, he's different. Like, it seems corny and all, but you want to talk about a successful individual, like, say what you want about his professional football career. I mean, he still won a playoff game. He still was a first-round pick. He's still obviously a hell of a talent, and things just wouldn't go right with his arm, at the next level. But, I think you can add in, just the quarterbacks. My one note I missed here was I think the quarterbacks in general at Florida should be their own episode. I mean, They recruited Jordan Reed to play quarterback. They recruited Trey Burton to play quarterback. This was all Urban Meyer. They recruited John Brantley was a top quarterback in the country. He went there. Cam Newton, Tim Tebow. I mean, that's ridiculous type guys. So there's stuff I'm forgetting, but I play with some Gators up in Minnesota, and we're all talking about it. Like, man, they're leaving all the good stuff out. I'm not saying you have to go crazy because there's some crazy stories. Trust me, crazy stories. But they didn't even scratch the surface. They just talked about articles they saw online, and there was no antagonist during that show. Like, I know Pat Dooley. He's a great beat writer, Gainesville Sun. He does Gainesville radio. ESPN Radio is a great Gator. I've done radio with him down there. He's a great, great man. He just retired. He's tons of Gator knowledge. They took 4 of his snippets, and it was all him saying a few things, and that was it. There needs to be someone from Gainesville saying, no, this place was crazy, and being the bad guy, because that's truly what happened. I mean, even Urban said it at times. He's like, man, I felt like I couldn't control the team at times. This was really getting off the rails. So I digress, Jack.
Yeah, and one last thing on that too. It's something actually kind of Cam Newton brought up and kind of brought to my attention too, in his TikTok of everything. I feel like they did Chris Leak dirty too.
Yeah.
Leak was very good, and it just felt obviously you got to paint the picture of who Tebow is, and really almost nobody can really compare to Tebow in college, but Chris Leak wasn't bad by any measure. I mean, you look, he started won that first national championship game. He was the starting quarterback in that beatdown at Ohio State. It's hard to say he's not a good quarterback when you put on that type of performance.
No doubt. No doubt. He was a great college football quarterback. So, Jack, something we talked about on the Sam Boner show. Mick had his clip out this week, and I kind of want to give my piece about this because I said on the Sam Boner show, and it probably won't make the best clip on there, but Mick and I were going back and forth of the most likable Philly athletes of all time. Who are those folks that come to mind for you? You grew up in Philly through great eras of athletics, great eras of sports, college, professional, great eras in all 4 of the pro main sports. So who are your thoughts? Who comes to your mind right away?
First one that come to my mind, they're kind of old, but I mean, they're still obviously top answers. Brian Dawkins, Allen Iverson. I feel like the 2 biggest. Bryce Harper's easily cemented himself right up there with the rest of them. Chase Utley and Ryan Howard up there too, just because every kid I knew, any sport growing up, they were 26, 6 or 20 because of Dawkins, Utley, or Howard.
Jimmy Rollins.
Yep, Jimmy Rollins. I mean, pretty much all of the core of that 08 dynasty.
Yeah.
I don't know if you really consider him dynasty, but
Dynasty. I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Kelsey is up there with everything he's done recently. Just got a random phone call. I was trying to figure out who it was. Maybe it was Minnesota Vikings calling me.
They're calling you. Call. Hey, we're going to sign you. We're going to sign you, Jack. Yeah, probably could be.
But yeah, I mean, pretty much those guys. Claude Giroux jumps out to me along those lines. Similar to him is Danny Briere, like Simone Gagne, those type of guys. So, I mean, those are the big ones that jump out to me as sort of the big cult heroes in Philly during my time growing up.
Yeah, I think you left out Joel Embiid. You can put Joel. Obviously, I know you believe that.
I mean, with this past season, I don't know if I would consider him in that caliber just right now.
What a joke!
You said top. Well, are you saying
you just said Simone Gagne over?
Are you
Joel
saying
Embiid.
Well, I'm going off your quote. You said likable Philly athletes, right?
How do you not like Joel Embiid, bro? Guy wins an MVP. He talks about the process. He's extremely great with the media.
We're not saying is he should he be well liked? We're saying is he? He's catching a lot of flack right now because of everything that happened in the postseason. So listen, I'm not saying should he be liked? Yes, I'm saying is he well liked right now in the city of Philadelphia? I would not put him in the same tier as Bryce Harper and them at this time.
Okay, I think that's fair. I'm just saying upper echelon. So, like I said, we talked about this on the Sam Boner show, and I wanted to give my piece on it. I think, and it's growing not close, the 2 most likable figures in the Philly sports landscape have to be Jason Kelsey and Bryce Harper. And they continue. Just when you think they've cemented themselves as the top 2 all time, they continue to cement themselves up there. Bryce Harper smashes a home run last night, shouts out a guy on WIP, Philly Sports Talk Radio, for the motivation behind it, right? Like, you want to talk about connecting to the fan base? What do you think those ratings are for that show? Bryce Harper speaking to the Little League World Series team that's from Delaware County talking to the kids about motivation and keep working hard. And this was all about the team and camaraderie. He steps up, smacks major home runs. He plays hard as hell. He says he played his whole career in Philly. He's like signing these mega deal here forever because he wants to be here forever. I mean, the guy is one of, I think he's number 1 or 2. And then number 1 or 2, Jason Kelce. I mean, you want to talk about, he changed the way people look at offensive linemen, period. No one talked about offensive linemen. No one had their jerseys. Now, I mean, you could argue he's the most sought after person on the Philadelphia Eagles right now when it comes to just connectability from the youth level, from playing with his kids to the party group that's like whatever, 21 to 35 to 40 and having $800,000 fundraisers, drinking down the Jersey Shore, chugging 50 beers, to like crazy philanthropists and connecting with an older crowd and playing hard, playing into your 30s at the offensive line spot. Like, they just check all these boxes. And I get it. There's some better players that came before. There were some splash in the pan type guys, but these guys are long-term. Price will be a long-term Philadelphia sports athlete. Jason will spend his entire career in Philadelphia. They're both going to be Hall of Famers. They're both more likable probably than what their play is. That's even possible because the impact they have on the community and the environment and the fans, they're literally already legends. And they're living, they're still playing, which is so hard to do. So to me, I don't even think it's close. I think those two, because the way they have connected on top of being great players.
Yeah, and the one thing with Kelce in terms of, I guess it's a kind of similar to likability. I tweeted this out forever ago. Jason Kelce has to be by far and large the highest grossing offensive lineman in terms of merchandise sales ever. The only one that I would say is considerably close, it might have him, is Joe Thomas. Because I mean, with how bad those, I just remember
because he was like the main piece in Cleveland.
Yeah, I just remember when he really was struggling, when the Browns were struggling towards the prime of his career. I just remember seeing the only jersey ever being for sale was the 73 Joe Thomas. I mean, that was the first time I've really seen an offensive lineman's uniform for sale. Really the only one since Jason Kelce sort of really stepped up in Philly. I guess a little bit, maybe Trent Williams in Washington. That's really about it, in my opinion. And now Mailata. I mean, like, I see people wear Mailata Kelly Green jerseys. That's like one of the 8 big ones they've been touting, which is
he's unreal.
It's crazy. Yeah, he's obviously dominant.
Dominant. One of the best. Was he draft pick or undrafted? 7th rounder?
7th round pick.
Yeah, I think he was one of the best. I mean, the guy's a mountain. Guy's an absolute mountain. Eagles and their offensive line, man. They do it right. So we talked a little Gators documentary. We talked Bar of the Week. We got into Philly sports athletes. There's a couple other things I want to touch on, but we're not going to get into this episode here. I got exciting stuff coming up with, Yoni Rosenblatt. We've had Yoni on before. There was some stuff going on, obviously, with Shohei Ohtani in the Major League Baseball. I mean, he is the man in Major League Baseball right now. He is the talk of the town. He is a free agent. He also has to get Tommy John surgery. So you're like, what? And the guy's still matching the football? Like, what is going on? This guy's unreal. So I had Yoni on last week when I had a day off with the Vikings, and I just had him do 10, 15 minutes just talking about Shohei and the kind of nerded out a little bit about the injury, but also what the future is for him and how gifted he is. So, yeah, I gave a little NFL training camp update. Next time I'm going to talk about Notre Dame's financial impact on college football. That was just absolutely craziness what happened going over there with Navy. I'm going to bring up Harrison Bader, first class, man. Finding out on ESPN that he was getting cut by the Yankees, like his response, I thought that was unbelievable. Check out that video. And then a Temple roster breakdown, Jack, from the 2015 team and having like 40 NFL players on the roster, which I didn't realize. I knew we had a great team, but pretty asinine group of folks that are in the league and or like legit ballers in the CFL. So that's Jack Connell. Anything, Jack, before we go?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. Glad to finally get an episode between the two of us ripping it up. I think people will enjoy this one.
Yeah.
Excited for next week, following weeks, whatever else we got lined up.
Yeah, it's limbo right now, all right, for me personally in my personal life. So I wanted to get down here and get an episode in. I'm just chilling at the house right now, waiting to see what the agents say, what's next football-wise. But I feel great. I'm ready to go. And we'll see what happens. This is how this league is. That's why it's fun doing a show during it. I get to talk to you about it, talk to our fans and followers about it. Shout out to our friends over at the original Fudge Kitchen, fudgekitchens.com. Guys going to a game this year, use promo code Colin Thompson, COLINTHOMPSON. Tickets, $20 off your tickets, $50 or more. SeatGeek, thank you. Shout out. Use them. And we have a bunch of apparel coming soon here, Jack. Early September. Really excited. We're going to have a bunch of apparel deals, promo codes, all that fun stuff for our friends at Not For Long Media. That's Jack Connell. I'm Colin Thompson. I hope you guys enjoy just some fun little baseball injury chatter with kind of our injury correspondent, Yoni Rosenblatt. All right, so we have a recurring guest, someone you guys are going to hear from a lot this fall with NFL injuries. But, of course, there was a major injury in Major League Baseball, and I texted Dr. Yoni Rosenblatt, hello, and I said, Doc, Shohei Ohtani, the single greatest baseball player of all time, goes down with a UCL. Tommy John's. What does it entail for his career? What does it entail for him in the short term, the long term? He's up to break the bank with the largest contract in MLB history. Is he going to pitch anymore? What are your thoughts, Dr. Rosenblatt?
Okay, so we got into this a little bit with Purdy's elbow, taking it back to NFL, talking about the difference as to what could transpire with a torn UCL. So, Colin, you threw out the Tommy John bit. So Tommy John is the way they used to repair UCLs, and really repair is the wrong word. It's reconstruct, where they would pull a tendon either from the athlete's leg or from around his wrist and sling it through the elbow and reconstruct a brand new UCL. That's Tommy John. Now, they're moving towards repairing the UCL, and that we're calling an internal brace, and it's vastly different. So Brock Purdy underwent that internal brace. It makes it way quicker to get back either onto the field or onto the mound. Pitchers are coming back at about 5 to 6 months throwing really hard if you get the internal brace. If you go the whole nine, old school Tommy John, where they're slinging another ligament through that elbow, you're 9, 10, really a year before you're back on the mound and throwing hard. That is what Shohei already went through. This is number 2, tearing his UCL. So we don't know the level. The Angels aren't talking about the level of damage to that UCL. That will then dictate what they're able to do, the procedure they're able to do, whether it be the Tommy John, which is the old school, much longer to get back to pitching, or the newer internal brace where they're repairing the UCL. That'll speed up his recovery time. There's very little data on a second UCL tear and undergoing an internal brace. There just haven't been a lot of guys. It hasn't been around long enough to know how to really fare with that. What we do know is undergoing the Tommy John, that reconstruction, the chances you get back to previous level of play is very low with that second tear. So that's what Shohei's looking at. Now, the Angels haven't done much that have made sense handling Ohtani. So who knows where they're going to go with it. You know, he's in the lineup now while he's trying to figure it out. So
what's he doing in the lineup, though? Is he DHing, I guess?
Yeah. So he's DHing. He came back. I mean, they pulled him in the first game of a doubleheader. They put him back in for the second as a DH. He hit a double. You see this with your boy, Bryce Harper, coming back. He's able to hit way quicker than he was able to throw coming out of a Tommy John. So it's far less pressure on the medial or inside elbow portion when you're swinging a bat. So Ohtani did this already, I think in 2018 when he tore. He kept playing as a hitter. He just stopped pitching.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's lots to unpack there with the Angels too. Like, first off, his contract's up after this year. So, okay, you're going to play him. I guess you own his rights. You might as well play him. You might as well put butts in the seats while you have him, right? But like, what's next for him? You think in the future as a pitcher and a player, right? Because if I'm a team who's looking to, really go out and sign him.
Mm-hmm.
He's worth every penny as a player, marketing wise, international dollars. You're going to make your money up if you're talking about investment. But from his perspective as a player, I know there's not a lot of details out there of the damage like you've talked about. But if you're his agent, you're his physical therapist, you're a part of his team and his group, and you're saying, okay, what are your goals? Your goals are X. Great. But you just told us for the second time you want to pitch and bat, and maybe time to, step off the mound to become a full-time, hitter, fielder. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's a tough call. Obviously, he is a once in forever. We've never seen anything like this. To put it in perspective from an overall physical load that the guy puts himself through, we have seen one player in history pitch 100 innings and come up to bat 400 times, and that was Babe Ruth, and he did it once, and he's pitching because he realized he couldn't do it. Ohtani's done it 3 times in 3 consecutive years, by the way, with 500 at-bats. So, I mean, the guy's off the charts with the overall load. I know from what I've read, he hasn't called me yet, but from what I've read, the Angels were at the forefront of saying, hey, you do you want to do both, go do both. And these are really the risks, but they really took the reins off of him and said, you're going to play both ways at full tilt. And so the body can only handle so much. Now, if anyone can come back from 2 Tommy Johns or 2 UCL reconstructions, this guy does very little that is human. It wouldn't shock me if he is able to do it. The PT side is fascinating to me, or I should say like the biomechanics side. He's had a knee surgery in the past. He was complaining of shoulder fatigue. The Angels said he had never mentioned his elbow leading up to this start. From a kinetic chain standpoint, the guy's under a tremendous amount of load. If one little thing is off, you better believe the weakest link is going to blow up. That could be this. Now, you didn't ask me this, but I'll take it one step further. What I can surmise from what I'm hearing from the Angels GM, he'd never spoken about it, his elbow bothering him. So we got to assume that it was acute, like bang, all of a sudden something tore in his elbow. His velocity just like fell off a cliff, right? So all of that hints to him most likely being a good candidate for an internal brace, which would be a good thing. Because if it's something that lingers, his elbow's bothering him, the UCL, which was put in there, is stretched out. Those guys aren't good for internal braces. They have to go to the big boy Tommy John. So fingers crossed, maybe it's just an internal brace.
We'll see. It's going to be interesting to see how they're going to handle this moving forward. I would assume he's going to see outside help. Not that the Angels organization isn't what it is, but
we don't know.
You have agents, you have a lot of people pulling at you, and you're up for the #1 contract in baseball. Okay, now put your GM hat on here. The bidding process is going to be what it's going to be. I mean, it sounds like an obvious question. It sounds like his numbers tainted a little bit, or what it was. Say it's whatever. I don't know the numbers in baseball. I forget. I read an article about it. Of course, it slipped my mind here in the middle of training camp. But say his numbers, $500 million. Is he worth the same amount of money now?
Pitchers, you see this all the time. They're always walking a tightrope. So I think it's baked into the cake. I think that's a known thing at this $500 million. I think there's a team that's going to pay $500 million, if he had to have a leg amputated, because we've never seen anything like this. And then all the reports, I'm buddies with a couple of guys on the Angels roster who just speak glowingly of him. You know this, Kyle, better than I. Like, how rare is that? Where the best player on the planet is the best dude in the clubhouse. Someone's ponying up for that. True Sports would pay him $500 million.
I bet you would. No, it's really well said about who you are as a human. I know from the outside perspective, it's not a big deal, but it's a very big deal in this process here and this grind here, and winning over teammates and coaches and front office members when you're about to sign mega deals and you show up like a guy like Bryce Harper, man. He leaned into Philadelphia. He is a part of that city. Now, Ohtani, there's a language barrier, I'm sure, and I know he's working through that. But it's going to be really interesting to see. He's the best player of all time. I think the whole Babe Ruth argument, I mean, he was eating hot dogs, drinking beers, and smoking cigars. Like, this guy, Ohtani, is an absolute machine. Mike Trout is one of the best ever to do it, probably at some point too. And he's overshadowing Mike. So I'm excited to see. I think for me, like I said with the Bryce Harper stuff, these guys already have wear and tear baked into the cake, to use your term, after decades of grinding. Yeah. Decades. So if I'm Ohtani, I get the surgery, I am not pitching. Whether the timetable, well, hear me out. The timetable may say PT 1, 2, and 3 may say you're good to go.
What are you doing?
I'm going to hit for a year. I'm going to let my body recoup. I'm still going to maybe take a bullpen session, continue to sharpen that sword, and then revisit it after one full year. I'm healthy. Okay, you're healthy to pitch. You're cleared. Okay, a year from that date, I'm not pitching again in a ball game. I think, to me, there needs to be more of a buffer, more of a time period. This kid has been throwing since, like, the Little League World Series, like, with curveballs and changeup. Like, you're going to break down no matter how well your nutrition is or how well your dedication is. So my point to that is this. I think he needs the grind to come back. I think he needs to dominate in the field. Again, he's a competitive player. He wants to. And then take some time, take more time. Let your body turn over. You're still going to be an all-star.
Yeah.
But we're going to wean in the pitching because this deal he's going to sign is going to be 10, 15 years. So I'd rather the guy be ready to pitch in 3 years, 2 years, and still be an all-star at bat. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I would say, first of all, what we know now is it's not the curveballs, right? It's the velocity and it's the repetition, right? So, and you're right. The guy's been throwing, and he's been throwing real hard for umpteen years. I don't think that's a terrible plan. What I'd love to see, what I have loved watching, is him coming over to America. And him embracing the strength and conditioning practices that we have here. He works with the elite. He works at a place called Driveline, which is some of like the elite of the elite pitching structures, and velo farms, we call them, where guys are like learning how to throw really hard and keep their arms healthy. So he's got it, he's embraced the best. The struggle is no one's ever done this, right? So yeah. The overall load, I don't know where he is with like the sports science of recovery. I'm sure it's elite, but I don't think that's a terrible plan. I think that's a good plan that you would draw out. And there's so many teams I would have to bet, this is conjecture, but would say, yeah, we'll still pay top dollar. Yeah. I think it's crazy that he's still in the lineup, dude, because it's crazy because they have fallen off a cliff since the trading deadline. So, and I guess he's a competitor. Like I said, I've never worked with Shohei, but I've worked with guys who have competed against him, and they just marvel at the specimen he is. I mean, he's like a 6'4" deer with like the fine motor skill that we've never seen before. So it's fun to watch.
And we'll see more of it in athletes throughout the years. You're seeing it in more. There's phenoms that come through every year. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, there's more phenoms than ever, but because of the specificity, I can never say that word, especially in training camp here, where I'm not working it like I'm always am here talking. The specificity of where you are, quarterback coaches at 10 years old. You're talking cover 2 now with 14-year-olds. What? Before we're running wing tee and pitching the guy the ball and one for the Gipper. So you're going to see more of this, in my opinion. Again, are you going to be Ohtani? I don't know. But you're going to see another Mahomes type character running around.
They're
coming because I played 10 sports growing up. I'm on a quad. I'm all falling out of whatever, running around like an idiot, playing hockey. If I had a speed coach and all these different things, who knows? But I digress. I am for multi-sport athletes. I know you are as well. So
absolutely.
Shohei Ohtani, we wish you nothing but the best of luck here, Not For Long Media, and I'm sure our friends at True Sports feel the same. That's Yoni Rosenblatt. Yoni, thanks for coming on, my friend.
Pleasure.